Introduction. I'm Jeremiah Marble. In Toronto, I saw a blind man put his life into the hands of a stranger. Jason was blind since birth. He can't see anything. I saw him waving his Windows phone around, calling an Uber, rather than having to have someone from his family or a friend of his take him all the way to a place where we were having dinner. He was able to call an Uber using modern technology and interact with his life and get to the dinner, get home, all using technology. Jason has been a Windows Insider since the beginning. He uses Cortana. He loves the narrator function of Windows. And he uses technology, including Windows, to live his life. That's pretty powerful. This is a person who has chosen technology because it has enabled him to do the things that he needs to do anyway. For me, this is a pretty important moment, as I realized, I was able to sort of walk there to the dinner. I was able to order the food by looking at the menu. I don't have to use technology just to do basic things like transportation, ordering, paying for things, right? Jason is an expert in being blind. Jason is an expert in using technology to interact with his world. Jason knows things that we don't know. Thinking about the Windows Insider program and thinking about how we're shaping Windows with help from people like Jason, we had 3 realizations. The first is behind me. Everyone has a superpower. Whether you're Jason and you use technology to call an Uber, or you're Harmony and you use gaming as a way to interact with your friends, or you're Tom and you're using technology as a way to earn money. Every single person is using the tools of his or her life in an important way. And we work for Windows. That's based in Redmond. But there are billions of people using this product that we're making. And not all of them live in Redmond. Not all of them look like me. Not all of them think the same way that I think. And so it's pretty important not only to recognize that every single person on this planet has a story to tell in a way that they're using the technology that we're building, but it's also important to pay attention to what they're saying. Jason not only uses technology to get around, but he also gives us a hard time when we screw up. Jason gives lots of feedback. That was the reason why he was invited to the dinner with us in Toronto. He's given feedback since the day we started the Insider program about 2 years ago at that time. And so he's very vocal, not only for himself, but he's also very passionate about improving the lives of other people like him, other people who are visually impaired. He is an advocate on behalf of the blind in Canada. He works for the National Advancement of the Blind. In his spare time, he helps at a local school for the blind. And he is using technology not only to improve his life, but to help other people develop the workarounds and the ways of living their life that will help them too. And so when he's submitting feedback not only for himself, but also for every person that he's met and all the people in the world who have the same sorts of issues. This is true for all of us, whether you're a gamer or you're an IT pro or you're just using Word, right? You're using technology in a way that is enabling you to give a presentation even when your PC is being flighted. But you're also thinking about ways to do it better. So next time, I'm going to delay the flight until after the presentation. Jason, when he has a problem with Cortana or a problem with narrator, he works with our team to make sure that we know about that so we can fix that. The other thing that was interesting about this dinner in Toronto is very similar to one we had just last night here, is every time we go to a new place, we try to meet some of the folks who are in our community. Jason wasn't at the Windows Insider dinner because it was a dinner for people who have visual impairment. No, he wanted to meet people like himself who love technology, love being part of this thing called the Windows Insider program, probably wanted to meet Donna, and basically was there because he enjoyed being part of a group of people who are trying to change the world. And we believe that that is true not only for what we're doing with the Windows Insider program, but also for each one of you. Whether you're using technology to run a business, using technology to support a business, using technology for a side hustle, however you're using technology, however you're interacting with your life, you have clients, you have customers. it's important to remember that these lessons, which we've learned the hard way, also apply to you as well. Think about who's using the product that you're selling, the service that you're selling. What's important to them? Why are they using your product and not your competitor's product? What are the things that drive them? Why are they tweeting at you? Why are they sending you emails? There's a few folks out there who are using the things that you're creating, and they're trying to co-create with you. And that's something that's kind of scary, right? It's really easy just to sit on a desk in Redmond and say, this is a Windows, and here you go, and I hope you like it. That was the old model. But we've changed that over the past 2.5 years. And we're saying, look, this is a product that is used by billions. We're going to work with the millions of you who are Windows insiders to make it a better product. So thinking about the Windows Insider program, we have millions of people who are part. Hopefully, who here is a Windows Insider? That's awesome. Hopefully, by the end of it, all of you will raise your hands. So there are millions of people in the Windows Insider program. Millions of people are too many to interact with person to person. I've met many of you at the dinners, in the conferences, in the side conferences, learning things. But I can't meet every single one of the many, many millions of people who are part of the Windows Insider program, much less the billions of people who are users of Windows, right? So the way that we interact with lots and lots of people, in our case millions, for you maybe it's millions, maybe it's hundreds of thousands, maybe it's tens of thousands. The way that you interact with lots and lots of people, too many to meet personally, is you interact with them through systems. Things like email, Facebook, Twitter. Ways that allow a few number of people, and the people who work on the Insider program are about 20 people or fewer than 20. We have to interact with millions of people. You, as you're thinking about evolving your product, you will want to interact with all of the users of your product, but especially if those select few who want to make your product better and give you that feedback. You can't do that by meeting all of them. You can do that through systems. But that only takes you to a certain point. At a certain point, this feedback, in our case, exabytes of data, becomes too unmanageable if it's only exabytes of data. We receive feedback through the UIF, so that's giving feedback, user-initiated feedback, through the feedback app. We get feedback through SIFs, system-initiated feedback. Those are little mini surveys that pop up. Hey, I noticed you just used Cortana on a scale of 1 to 5. What'd you think? Then we also receive feedback through the normal ways that companies receive feedback. They tweet angrily at Donna. They send her lots of emails. They sent Gabe lots of tweets and emails, right? So somewhere in that is a signal. We also have lots of telemetry. This is not true for all companies, but in our case, we have a way to process lots of information, but that information is hard to understand. We have an entire team of data scientists helping us process that data, but far more important, in some cases, to telling a story is, I met Jason. He's blind. He's using Cortana to call an Uber, and it crashed. Can we help him out? If you're an engineer in charge of Cortana, and you know that a person couldn't get home because he couldn't call an Uber, I would guarantee as a human being, you're a lot more likely to fix that bug, right, than saying, hey, it looks like we got 25% more feedback, right? So as you go from lots and lots and lots of users of your product to still lots, an important part of interacting with this community who wants to co-create with you is to meet them. That's why we have these talks. That's why we have the dinners. That's why Donna is so active on Twitter, and Gabe was before him. That's why we try to make ourselves available, and we hand out our personal email addresses. And there are insiders who have my Facebook information, my Twitter information, because they're people. We meet them all around the world, in Cologne and London and Tokyo and New Delhi and here in Auckland. But once you meet someone, they become much more than, this user gave us a certain amount of feedback. No, that's a person. That's Jason. That's Harmony. That's Rod, right? And you can tell the story of Rod. And I met Rod when he came to campus in Redmond. And then I met him again in New York. And then he told me that he had a problem with his Lumia 950. And he went to the store, and he had an issue with the store, right? That's a person that allows you to make a connection not only with the person giving you the information, but the person who can help fix the problem. And that last tier, so you've gone from, in our case, millions to tens of thousands of people that we met along the way. I don't remember the names of everyone I've met. I have a terrible name for names. But I do remember Rod, and I do remember Harmony, I do remember Jason, right? So not all of the people that you meet will become a story. Not all of them will resonate with you. You may not, have a good day, maybe you didn't have your cup of coffee. But for those few people that you meet and you have a good conversation with, and they tell you something that's important and they stay in touch with you, you start to develop a relationship with them over time. We had an amazing slide showing this, but it's on the other computer. So this here is the meeting in Toronto. You have here Jason. Jason is here. You see Donna. Monic's there in the back. But you also have an astrophysicist. You also have a person who is an anthropologist, an IT pro at a local college. A 13-year-old showed up, brought his mom. And these are actually real people. And if I worked hard enough, I can remember the names of every person at the table. And I could probably tell you a little bit about them. Why? Because it's not millions of people. It's the people around this table and the food that we had and the memories that we shared. And so now the next time we go to Toronto, you bet we're going to reach out to them. And you bet that when they have a problem, they write to me, Jeremiah, and not to info@microsoft.com, because they know me. So who are Windows Insiders? This here is in Lagos, Nigeria. We headed to Lagos to launch the Winsiders for Good Nigeria Fellowship. We are impassioned about reaching the folks who aren't living in Redmond, who don't have millions of dollars, who maybe didn't get the chance to go to tech school. These are young social entrepreneurs who want to change the place where they live. They're Windows Insiders too, and their voices are just as important. And I think they're all doing the ninja here, if you're wondering what they're doing. So in addition to the Windows Insiders you have, the man in the, pink shirt is Bambo Shofala. He's the director of software engineering for Windows, right? He's super excited to be back in his native land of Lagos. And you can bet that any single one of these people who write to him, he's going to respond to them, right? Because he's met them. And not for all of them, but for many of them, he's going to start to develop a relationship with them. We also have, as part of the Insider community, the Winsider for Good initiative, something that we call the Create-a-thons, or CATs. Donna's infatuated with cats, so pretty much everything has something to do with cats or Ninja Cat or something like that. So these people are actually doing the Ninja Cat. This is a screenshot of a video that we took. So the initial CAT started life as part of our one-week hackathon. Every year in Redmond, since I think Satya kicked it off, we gather, many of us get together and we hack together something. And a hack doesn't have to be a web page or an app. A hack can be, hey, I have this idea and I want to make this poster. Or I have this idea and I'm going to start this company. Or I have this idea and I'm going to do something. It doesn't have to be a traditional hack. And so we had this idea as part of a hackathon. Let's do what we call the Create-a-thons, the CATs, and bring together people who are trying to change the world. So we get together, usually about 40 people. We break those 40 people into groups of 4. And then each of the teams, 10 teams, have usually a creative, so someone who's visually acute, usually a techie, so someone who can design a web page, a storyteller who can actually put things into words, and then usually a wild card. And we've had some really amazing wild cards, like someone who designs comic books. We had an astrophysicist from, I think, NASA. Like, crazy people spend their times to come to a Create-a-thon, a CAT, and spend time with us working on a social issue. So we launched this in Seattle. This is the Seattle CAT. We also have done CATs in London, Cologne, Berlin, Boston, New York, and about 20 other places around the world. And each of these people are Windows Insiders. Maybe they weren't when they started. There's the idea that Windows Insiders look in a certain way. But as you'll see through these images, Windows Insiders are really anyone on Earth who wants to use technology and make the world a better place. This was the Cologne CAT. Again, we're doing the Ninja Cat. We had here a group of folks living near Cologne, in this case working on gaming for good. Every year, GamesCon and GDC, Games Developers Conference, is in Cologne. So we thought we'd use the opportunity to get together some of these top talent from gaming firms and see if we can work to make a better place. And we have here Berlin. Yeah, so in Berlin, we were working on affordable housing. The idea that not everyone has the chance to live close to where they work. The idea that not everyone has the luxury of making so much money that they can afford to pay rent. Right, so this is a real challenge. The extreme end of affordable housing is homelessness. And so together, these folks and we were trying to think through the ideas of how can you improve the world. So these are some of our insiders. These are some of the people who want to CoCreate Windows. And Windows, you hopefully all use Windows. Hopefully you're all going to join the Insider program if you're not already an insider. But all of you have your own set of customers. Maybe it's not 1 billion people all around the world. Maybe it's just here in New Zealand for now. Maybe it's just here in Auckland for now. Maybe it's in Auckland and in West Island, right? It's possibly that you're working with a group of people you might not get to see all the time. Maybe they're dispersed all around the world. Maybe your users are the museums that we saw in the keynote presentation. I don't know what your personal effort is. You do. But one thing that we do know is that co-creating with these people who are using your product is not an option. First, you can make a better product, which is something we hopefully all want to do. Second, you can sell a whole lot more of whatever you're selling if you're making it for the person who's going to be using it, right? So there's all these things that, by taking it at a very early stage, the folks who are using your product and working with them, that helps you reinvent the development cycle, putting community at the center of it. So the typical development cycle looks a lot like this. You start on a piece of paper or a whiteboard, and you analyze what you think the market wants. So I'm gonna work on my poker app. I think that people want a better way to interact and learn some of the ways that you play certain hands, right? So I'm going to analyze the set of rules that dictate the thing that I want to make. So then I sort of do a prototype of that. It's usually on PowerPoint slides or drawn on a piece of paper. And then, if I'm good, I'll influence the people who can actually make it. So I know how to code, but during my poker app, I have to persuade my friends to spend their time to make the code. For Windows, PMs actually spec the thing. They have to go persuade engineers to prioritize their feature over other features. You have to influence people to get this stuff done. Maybe you're designing a line of clothing and you have to influence a manufacturer to carry your line. Or you have to get space on store shelves. So I don't know what your product is, but I guarantee you at some point of the way, to get it from an idea to a prototype, you have to influence folks to help you out. Then you create. So this is sort of the loop that we try to achieve. You create, you test it, you create, you test it, and you try to make a better and better product before finally you shipping it. And then you analyze the results and you make version 2 or version 3, version 4. So that's kind of what development looks like, abstracted across a lot of industries, whether it's finance or agriculture or tech. Or scrubbing layman, that's right. But the point that we think is important is that if you think about the folks who are at the end of the line, who are using what you're doing, you will do a lot better because it's not abstract anymore. Whether you're receiving lots of emails or you're talking to someone who's looking you passionately in the eye and saying, hey, I really don't like that the zipper's broken. You learn a lot more by talking to people than you will by analyzing massive amounts of data or thinking in a room with a few of your colleagues. So putting community at the center goes a long way to helping you achieve the things you're trying to achieve. And then it also reinvents the way that you go to market. So you sell the product, you use that money from selling the product to hire more folks, and then eventually you have a bunch of people who are using your product. But it's not linear any longer. Now it's a constant process. And your success metric is what your community is trying to do with your product. So starting out, figure out who are your customers, who wants to use the things that you're making. What is important to them? Why are they using your product? Why are they using a product at all? Why are they going to the store and picking this thing up? Understanding what their needs are, and then connecting it to the community of folks who are using it. So your customers might be according to your industry. So think hard about what it is that you're selling. You didn't want to do that. So they're using your product in a certain number of ways, but it's important for them to use the product. Let's just do this. They're using this thing that you're selling for a reason. But they're using your product for a reason, but there's also something that's more important to them than using your product. In our case, we're selling Windows. We're selling Windows as a way to empower people to change their own lives. But at the end of the day, Jason isn't using Windows because he wants to help Satya Nadella. He's using Windows because he needs to call an Uber to get to the place. He's using Windows because he needs to pay for things. He's using Windows because he needs to understand what is on the email that someone sent him. So he's not using our product, and it's an amazing product, and we think you should all use it. But he's not using our product because he inherently loves us. He's using our product to achieve something. His currency is interacting with his life as if he weren't blind. He's using Windows as a tool of doing that. It's important to remember the distinction between the two. Windows is a tool. Your product is a tool. What your user is trying to do, what is important to your user, is a little different from that. So figure out what their currency is, and then amplify those things. And so in our case, it's figure out what the things are of Windows that are broken and fixing them. Is it a bug that is preventing Jason from paying for his Uber? Is it something that we could improve on? Is it the UI, right? So for us, we can help Jason by doing X. This thing is broken. This thing could be better. Let us now go do that thing. So amplify what their key motivators are, and then try to work with them to achieve those things. And then lastly, connect them to other folks who are trying to do the same thing. Maybe it's not having a dinner with other insiders, in the case of your communities. But I guarantee you that people who are in the same area, people who share the same disability, people who share the same interests, right? Many times they'll want to connect with each other. We're all human beings. We love interacting with each other. It's not about we're only interacting with this world financially. No, we have all these conflicting motivations that intertwine. And interacting with other people who are using the same sorts of things is very, very powerful. This is Donna.
Easy transition, guys. Easy transition. All right.
Thanks.
All right. So how many of you have customers? All of you have customers, actually, because if you're making a thing or running a service or trying to convince people to help you even partner with the thing, you have customers, and you've dealt with customers back in the day. Now, many of you make technical decisions for companies. How many of you make tech decisions for companies? Yeah, that's a lot of the room. Your customers are the people that you make those tech decisions for, right? And their success is the only metric that matters. Gone are the days when our success metrics used to be, how many sales did you make, right? Oh, okay, Donna, I made like this mint, and then I sold it to this dude, and then he bought it, and he paid me $5. It's an expensive-ass mint. But he paid me $5, I have $5 in my pocket, I'm successful because I made $5. Then it was the era of active users, right? How many people are gonna come to your website? How many people are gonna hit up your app? How many times is your app gonna get opened? That was the success metric we used for many, many years, like a whole decade. But that's gone.
Unless you're at Wells Fargo.
Then you're just like cringing, right? Then you just cringe. But the thing is, guys, like, it doesn't work that way anymore. People have endless options for any product. any product in the world. It's not enough to just have a product anymore, because at any moment, turn around, guess what? There's a startup. They're coming for you. There's a IT consulting vendor company, and they're like, hey, Bank of New Zealand, we can replace your IT department with 2 nerds. They're coming for you because they can. We're in this era of disruption where anyone can disrupt anyone. Anyone can be disrupted. And anytime a company, no matter how big or how legit or how respected, any company can be disrupted. And if there's a single company in the world out there that thinks they're wrong, they're going to get disrupted. So I'm an author, and the publishing industry, amazing example of this. For hundreds of years, they said, we own publishing. We own what you read. We decide that. We decide who writes books, who reads books, where it gets distributed, what becomes a bestseller. Bestsellers are not born, they're made. Publishing houses decided it. We're going to put it in your face at the airport. We're going to put it on billboards. They decide. They made that decision. And then around 2008, something very interesting happened. Amazon said, what the hell, this is bullshit. Publishing houses in New York City, you don't decide what a global audience, 7 billion people should read. That's ridiculous. I'm going to interrupt that, right? That's what Amazon said. And they said, we're going to find a way that all of your printed books where you're killing trees, we're going to put them online on a website, and people can just go buy it. And no book is more important than another. Anyone can find a book on Amazon. You don't need to be located in New York City. You don't need to be at the airport. Right now, if you look for a book on Amazon and it doesn't show up, does that book exist? No, right? Think about what that means. Back in the day, you had no idea if a book existed or not. A friend could have told you, hey, you got to check out this new book by Daniel Pink. You have to go to a bookstore. Now you look up on Amazon, it's not there, it does not exist, your friend is a liar, right? So Amazon disrupted publishing in an instant. And publishing, to this day, is just reeling from it. First they went through the stages of grief. No one's ever going to read things on a device. No one's ever going to want to buy things off a website. Who trusts websites anyway? That's crazy. I'm going to trust a bookstore. I'm going to drive 40 miles to Topeka, Kansas, and buy a book at a bookstore. And then the Kindle readers started to just take off, far outnumber real book readers. And Amazon is notorious for co-creating with their customers, right? They are constantly A/B testing. They're one of the first and best companies for A/B testing. You're constantly getting like this view versus that view, this view versus that view. The number of A/B tests they do in a minute is greater than the A/B tests that most other tech companies do in a year. And they have the customer segmentation like no one's business. They're constantly testing and they're constantly co-creating with you. Their community of Amazon insiders, they call it like all sorts of things like Prime Now, this, that, depends on the thing, is really, really strong. And they look at that feedback and they internalize it deeply. At Amazon, they have a circular table where they have meetings, just like most places, but they have an empty chair. And that chair is the customer. And when they're making a decision, they always say, but what would the customer say? Put yourself in the chair of the customer. Remove yourself, Mr. or Ms. VP. Put yourself in the chair of the customer. And these are the lessons that we've learned, right? We've watched these companies do it correctly for many years. And we're like, you know what? We're going to do it correctly too. And it's way harder for something that used to be known as box software rather than a website, right? It's very hard for us to change Windows and you to get the update in the next 5 minutes, unless you're presenting, apparently, in which case, hey, let's do this. But we're at this point where we have to be able to iterate quickly, and we have to be able to iterate quickly based on the demands of our people. Because ultimately, the human beings that we build products for or we create services for, whether it's the person upstairs in your the person who your IT department services, or the actual physical product you're sending to someone, their success is the only success that matters. Because if they're not successful, they are not going to use your product again. And when that disruption comes calling, they will take it. So it's not enough to just have a product. You need a platform. And the platform are the sea of humans, your tribe, your people, who lift your product up and raise it above the noise. And that is why it's called a platform. But you need both. There's something very powerful about a small number of people having huge impact. We've discovered that with the Windows Insiders, because if you think about the scope of the world, it's billions of people, 7 billion people. 2 billion of those are our customers. That's quite good. But how do you actually talk to 2 billion people? You don't. But you have to be able to represent them with a subset of people. The millions who represent the billions. Millions are still a lot, but it's way more manageable than the billions. One of our huge quests this year is diversifying our program so we actually are representing the billions. That's why we get on planes. That's why we're not sitting in Redmond, Washington, watching the keynote at 3 a.m. We're here because we want to meet people like you and you and you and figure out what are you trying to do with your businesses, because it's arrogant of us to think that we can sit in Redmond and understand your business. It doesn't work that way. Because I'm someone who's a Nepali, technically, but if you ask me what a day-to-day life of a woman in Nepal is like, hell if I know, right? You and I have far more in common than I do with someone in Nepal. They don't have connectivity. They may not even have an outlet in their house. So how can I know that? The only way to know is to go get subsets of customers and to build your community and build it strong so that people feel valued and they feel like they belong. Because ultimately, that's all we crave. We want to feel that the unique skill set that we bring to the table matters, and that unique skill set leads to a unique voice. When people don't feel like that they're unique, that's where pettiness kicks in. That's when you see bickering and fighting. You see it in your organizations and companies all the time, right? Bickering and fighting. It's because people are too similar. They're being told that you're judged on the exact same criteria. That's where that kicks in. But where your unique value kicks in, where your own unique value matters, that's when you feel special. It's the 3 circles of the Venn diagram that I showed the other day. If you're learning, if you're contributing, your skill set, the thing you've worked so hard to build is being used, and you're making that lasting impact, then you feel like you belong. And that feels freaking great. So it turns out that building a community is easy. It's easy and it's hard. It's simple and easy, but the execution is a little complex because it's like every other relationship you've ever had, the successful ones. Okay. I've been in this job for 150 days exactly today. And I've learned some amazing things about our customers, but more than that, I've learned amazing things about relationships. And this has helped me in many ways with my relationships with friends, family, loved ones, everything. Because ultimately, we're all humans. And if you can treat your customers as these humans that you have a two-way relationship with rather than a transaction, they're going to want to help you. They're going to want to be part of your platform. They're going to want to be your tribe, not just someone who receives the product of what you create. So the most important thing to know is you have to offer something beyond your product or service. Because your product, there's hundreds of other products and services that they can be using. Even if they're stuck using your product or service, because, hey, I work for this company, you got to use this rollout mechanism that I invented. That's resentful. People will resentfully use your product, but they will not love you. And the first chance they get to abandon ship out of there, they will do it. So you have to offer them more. So one of the things that we do for the insiders is we figure out how we can help make their lives better. Because that is the mission of Windows, is empowering every person on the planet to achieve more. Not just the millions, and not just the 2 billion we already have, not just the West Coast of the US. Empower every person on the planet. That means that people have goals, and people have dreams and ambitions. And sometimes they have these fantasies that they don't even know about yet. So we know that one of the big issues that we've seen among the Windows Insiders community is that they live in distributed places all over the world. We have a lot of insiders who say, I have deep technical expertise. I'd love a job working at a company. I just don't know how to get that job. And we said, you know what? We have a bunch of companies who hire tech people. We have tons of Microsoft customers and partners who have IT departments. They're always hiring. They hit us up all the time. Like, who knows AAD? Who knows Windows development? Who knows O365 Dynamics? They hit us up constantly. And yet we have this community of people who would love to be employed. That's not something we need to do to build Windows, but it's something we do need to do to build the Windows community. So it's important to separate them out and say what is for your product and what is for your community, because you have to build both. They support each other. So this is Jeremiah's secret project that I told him I wouldn't tell everyone, and I did. So you have to do it. Okay, so there's something really powerful about creating something together. You know that thing where you go to someone's house and they hand you a bottle of wine and said, no, let no glass go unfilled. You have a job. Your job is to keep every glass filled. That feels great because suddenly you've been put to work. You're not a guest, you're a participant. And we've discovered with the Windows Insiders, using all of our powers, our unique superpowers that Jeremiah was mentioning before, and we're coming together to create something, especially something that has a lasting impact that affects everybody, because everyone lives in a place, and everyone knows people who are homeless, need affordable housing. They know homeless shelters where clothing distribution is hard. Everyone knows these problems, and everyone has a unique skill set that they can bring to the table. These create-a-thons have been magical because it gives people a purpose to come together. Right? You know those networking events where you show up and you hand out business cards? I hate them. Does anyone like them? Yeah, so I've been in hundreds of rooms, and maybe like 2 people have raised their hand, and they're all like, you know, these very extroverted salespeople. We're like, listen, we're nerds, okay? We don't like that. So when you go to an event and you're there with a very specific purpose, that's very powerful because that gives you immediately something to talk about, right? Like, oh, why are you interested in this topic? Are you a designer or are you a developer? Are you a storyteller or are you an astrophysicist? You know why you're there. The way we build networks is through one common pivot point, right? That's where the stalking and harassing comes in. You have to know what that common pivot point is. So creating something together is really powerful. It's brought together this community of people who before had one-on-one communication and contact with me or Gabe or Jeremiah, but they didn't talk to each other because they didn't need to. The only time they talked to each other was when they were helping each other debug. But coming together as communities, especially in places they live, to tackle an issue that affects them is incredibly powerful. And the feedback we've gotten on these create-a-thons is just absolutely phenomenal, mind-blowing, and so humbling. Because the insiders, they raised their hands and said, we want to participate in this, but more than that, how can we have them on our own without you even being there? So because of that feedback, we made a thing called a create-a-thon in a box. You can go get it, insider.windows.com, /give. And as part of our Give Month, October's Give Month at Microsoft, we all, 100,000 of us, try to give back to the community. We said, here's a create-a-thon in a box. We can hook you up with an NGO nonprofit in your city who all have problems because they've been trying to eradicate these old problems for decades without tech, right? For decades. It's not working. If it was working, it would have worked by now. We have to apply tech and creatives to the problem. We need people from outside to disrupt these problems. These are problems worth disrupting. So the insiders raised their hand and said, Donna, give us a way to actually do this. And we said, hell yeah, we will. So we made these create-a-thons in a box. Next up, we're making an Winsiders for Good database where people who are interested can sign up and say, my name is Kyle. I live in New Zealand. I'd like to volunteer to participate if someone has an event. Or better, I'd like to organize an event. Windows Insiders of New Zealand, come to my event. We had people do this in London. We had people do this in Ireland. It was amazing to watch insiders organize events with people like them. They share something. They belong to our community. And it's inherently a really powerful thing for people who feel like, what am I even doing in this world? To gather and hustle together a group of people to do something for the greater good. Next. Being vulnerable. This one is the hardest. It is very difficult for people, but it's very, very, very difficult for companies. You remember when car companies screw up, they're like, oh no, by design, they're supposed to blow up, right? We're like, don't be a creep. That's weird. But now you're seeing a trend, right? People stand up and say, you know what? I messed up. Here's what I learned, and here's how we're going to do it differently. Do you trust people who never admit to their mistakes? You don't, because you'd think they're lying to you. So what else are they lying about? It's incredibly important for companies, businesses, departments to be vulnerable and say, yeah, we rolled out that thing. It was dumb. Sorry, here's what we learned. Here's what we're going to do better next time. That's really powerful because it shows trust. And vulnerability is one of the key components of trust. Ultimately, what you're doing through all of these relationship building activities is building trust with your customers, with your audience. Being vulnerable both ways is important. Customers trust us with their data. They trust us to say, hey, I don't actually understand what you guys are trying to do with this new set of features. It's important for us to say, we apologize for rolling out this thing too early. We apologize for sending you a flight that has a lot of bugs. Or we apologize for creating features that we have to pull out later because they just didn't work. But having that two-way vulnerability is incredibly important because you like people that you trust, and you trust people that you like. Both of these things are true. Customers have to feel like it's safe for them to be vulnerable. My community is amazing. I have been just mind-boggled and humbled the last 150 days with the things that my community is vulnerable with me about. They've openly said that being part of this gives them something to belong to. This is someone who I have a pretty great relationship with on Twitter. He's a young man who lives here in New Zealand, and he told me that he was feeling really lost. He was studying computer science, he was at university, but he didn't know what he wanted to do with his life. And he met Gabe, and he met our team, and he met me, and he realized that this has given him a clear mission. He wants to work with people like us. He loves tech. It's reinvigorated his love for tech. And that's so powerful, to be able to create a space where people can be vulnerable. And when you go about your business and you think about your customers and your clients and the people that you offer a service to, think about how they can be vulnerable to you so that they can come to you and say, you know what, I'm really struggling with this thing, can you help me? Because only when you know what your customers are struggling with, can you help them. But for you to go behind the podium and make a product or service and say, ta-da, here it is, like it doesn't work. It doesn't work anymore. That's not okay. People want to be part of the solution. And a big part of that is them trusting you enough to know what problems are they even trying to solve. So because of Adam, we realized we definitely need to have this insider matching thing where we can mentor one another. We have one of the biggest tribes on earth. Millions of people is a lot of people. That's not small. Other companies are like, oh, we'd love for one day we would have 1 million customers. I'm like, we call that a failed beta, right? We are those people. But this tribe of millions, we can do so much with. We have the biggest mentor ring on earth because everyone knows something interesting and unique. And everybody is willing to help because they've already raised their hand to help. So because of Adam, we've decided we're going to create one of the biggest mentor rings on earth. What can you learn? What do you want to learn? What can you teach? And let's do a matching program so people can mentor and coach and help each other. Because that's ultimately why we belong to a community. So we can help others and be helped in return. Next. Introducing people to each other in your community. This could be something like IT professionals of Auckland. There's a community of people there. That's really, really cool. It's really very powerful for you to say, you know what? I happen to know these people. I know you. Meet each other. Because suddenly you're a hub, and that's powerful. So when you think about people who you offer products and services to, even if that's your day job and your side hustle, figure out ways for your communities to meet each other and a way for people within your community to meet each other because probably they have some similar values and similar goals and aspirations as well. So we do a lot of this. Our community they talk to each other constantly now. They're like, no, don't be sad, Michael West. You can learn to code. Here's how I did it. So our community doesn't need us to be there to micromanage it or to foster it. The community exists without us. When you think about what a community is, it's not just one-way arrows. It's a triangle. Relationship with me and you, relationship with me and you, relationship with you and you. That's how every community in the world works, whether it's a church, a religion, a school. It's with the leader, but it's also with each other. Those two bonds are what keep you in place, not just the one bond. One bond is very fragile, but two or more, you're in a spider nest. You can't leave, right? Spider web. Okay. Next. All right. Ridiculousness. Very important. Any Windows insider knows what that means. It means we're about to launch a build. This Ninja Cat pressing a red button, it's something that evolved over many years. There's no Ninja Cat origin story. It's all comes from how we take software so seriously and there's so much negativity around it. Let's just have a release all about puppies and kittens and bunnies and cute fuzzy things. And Ninja Cat claims, do not call me fluffy. Ninja Cat is vicious. You'll never see him coming. But this is a symbol. Symbols are powerful. You think about Tribes, you think about families. Every family has a crest. Every tribe has a symbol on their shield. You think about like the Game of Thrones people, they all have symbols, family crests. Because symbols are really powerful. That's why we work so hard on logos. It evokes a feeling. It evokes this sense of we all belong to this thing. So make sure your community has a symbol of some sort that is your inside joke. And it shouldn't just be your company. Again, there's a difference between your product and your platform. So figure out what that symbol is, whether it's a joke, a saying, a mantra, whatever it is. It's something that'll evolve and emerge naturally, but make sure everyone feels like a part of it and it's recognizable, because it really does bring people together. Appreciation. When was the last time someone said, hey, thank you so much for what you did. That was amazing. Everyone, look at what he did. It was amazing. It doesn't happen. However, if you screw up, we'll be like, you screwed up. Why? Everyone look at his screw up, right? Unfortunately, it's just the insecurity of humans. We feel that if we give people appreciation, they'll become proud and arrogant. That actually never happens. No one becomes arrogant because someone thanked them. It doesn't work that way. We appreciate our community's help very loudly. I thank them in every blog post. When someone goes out of their way to go and help debug problems for others, I call them out. And that's because it's nice to be appreciated. You love feeling appreciated. You love when this happens, where people are talking about you in another room in a really good way. They're like, Louise is amazing. She is so good at what she does. You have to meet her. That feels so good, right? Yep. It doesn't happen enough. It doesn't happen enough. Do that for your community, just randomly, and not for the flight risks, right? We spend a lot of time babysitting flight risks. As companies, we do. We're like, oh no, it's a Comcast. So-and-so is threatened to quit. We should go and give them a deal. Why? Do something nice for the people who are your people, for the people who are always there for you, for the people who help others. Show your appreciation. You don't always, go buy flowers for your spouse when you screw up. Maybe we do. Okay, I do. But people, we should be doing that stuff before we screw up, because it builds currency. You put money in the bank before you take it out. So give 60%, right? That old psychologist said, to be in a good relationship, each of you put in 60%. That's the only way it works. Because one day, one of you is not going to put in 60%, but you've already made the investment. We are strongly advocate for our community. Anytime I get a chance to showcase the work that my tribe and my community have done, I will showcase the hell out of that thing. So if you are a Windows Insider and you're writing apps, hit me up, because I will install your app, I will use your app, I will write about your app, and your app installs will fly through the roof. Oh, sorry. Because that's what you do for your community. It's what you do for your people. You're their advocate. It's your job to be their sponsor. You've said, hey, I'm going to lead this tribe. You have a responsibility of being their sponsor. So be their advocate. When they do something great, point it out. Be like, that guy, that girl did something amazing. Okay. Next. If your customers aren't near you and you don't see them all the time, they're going to want to meet you in person to prove that you're real. Once you start fostering these like online relationships or even in-person relationships, just taking them to the next step is actually quite powerful. So how many of you have coworkers in real life, and then when you friend them on Facebook, you discover that your relationship's even stronger, right? Because you start to know them in a different way. You see a different side of them. It's the same that I have Twitter relationships with many, many people, but when we meet in person, it's really powerful because we get to see, oh, wow, we're real people face to face. And the weird idiosyncrasies I have online, I'm still a weirdo in person. So that meeting, just meeting in person and online, really powerful. Try doing it. Every chance you get to meet customers face to face, take it. I've never regretted it. We always get on planes. They all think I'm a bot. So now I've convinced them I'm a hologram. So we're migrating. We're evolving. OK. This is my favorite. The first time you're in a serious relationship with someone. OK, think back. Or maybe some of you think about now. And they turn to you and say, I want you to come with me to my cousin's wedding next April. first there's panic and fear, but then there's that feeling of, wow, you're actually thinking about us in the long term. This is not just a short-term thing, you're investing. You're investing in this relationship. So when you make long-term plans with your customer and your community, they love it because they know you're not going anywhere. The product's not going anywhere. You providing the service is not going anywhere. You want them to be successful going forward. So I make long-term plans with my customers, my community all the time. I plan things that we're going to do in a year. I have a secret mission that every single Windows Insiders is going to learn to code a little bit because tech literacy is the new superpower. And damn straight am I going to empower my tribe to have the next superpower. Absolutely. Huh? Hell yeah, I'm going to make that into a shirt. I like it. Thank you. But it's one of my secret missions. And I don't care if it takes 5 years. I'm in. I don't care if it takes 5 years to teach how many million people to code. Because then they can spend 5 years teaching the billions. It's a long-term investment that I'm making. And I'm very vocal about it. Very, very vocal. And they love it. They're like, we love that you are thinking about us. Because oftentimes you're the only one who is. Right? How many of us think that there's people who are thinking about us and our long-term prospects all the time? There's not that many. You got one. You're very lucky. But there aren't that many people thinking about your future all the time. It's usually just you, maybe your boss, but it's not very common. So when you are very vocal that, hey, you know what? You're my customer, you're my people. I'm thinking about your future and how you're going to be successful going forward, whether that involves my product or not, they love it. Because then they truly believe that you belong to a tribe, to a family. And you've gone beyond just this transactional relationship where I sell you a thing and you like it, to you're someone who is a part of my community. So every one of you has homework, because that's what we do. Do the steps, the 4-step hustle. Know who they are, because every one of you has customers, whether it's for your side hustle or your day job. By nature of you being here means you have customers. You're building a thing for some people. Know who they are. Figure out what their currency is. What are they trying to do? What are their success metrics? How are you going to meet them? How are you going to get in touch with them? Is it Twitter, Quora, forums, events like this? How are you going to meet them? And even meeting a sampling of people and writing down what they're trying to do is quite powerful. Because you can say, hey, I met XYZ customers. Here's what they're trying to do. What about you? Then people start to open up because they realize you're serious. And 4, find ways to connect them to each other. Do the 4-step process. Your business will transform. I guarantee it. Our business did. If you have to take away one thing from all of this, customers, people you sell things to, community, people you help make successful, and you never need to sell anything again. My name is Donna Sarkar. He's Jeremiah Marble. You definitely want to join our community because we are ferocious, badass, ninja cat hustlers. Everybody stand up. You know what you're going to do. You know what you're going to do. Okay, Jeremiah, I need you on stage with the camera. There's no way you're leaving without everyone ninjaing. All right. You know how to do this. You've got to crouch down low so the Aussies don't see you. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Everybody ninja. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh. Of course, you guys are onto me. Do you have questions, actually, before we finish our flight and run away? Or are we late?
I think we're a little late, bud.
Oops,
Question.
sorry.
Thank you very much for the community. I'm glad that Microsoft is embracing the world and from us rather than giving us what they have made. Last year, I attended online one of the conferences of one of the competitors called Google. And from the keynote, and what I saw is that Google is interested in investing in those areas in Africa, Asia, South America, and the rural settings where there's not enough power, not enough internet connectivity, and not enough money to speak of.
Yes.
By opening, producing open source software
So the question for the recording is, Google has said they're going to invest heavily in rural areas in Africa, Asia, et cetera, by doing open source projects, having flyover drones and such. Does Microsoft have such dreams and ambitions, or are we focusing heavily on the enterprise? The answer is very simple. Google wants to build something that they want you to use. We want to empower people to build the thing that they need. When we went to Nigeria, we didn't say, hey, Nigeria, it looks like traffic is an issue. Here's a solution to traffic. No, we said, hey, Nigeria, what is an issue? Oh, agriculture is a huge issue. We didn't think of that. How do you think we should solve these problems? What a great solution. How can we help? It's arrogant for us to go to a place and say, here's your problem, here's your solution. It's not arrogant to come in and say, we're just here to help you, because success should be reproducible, right? So we don't believe in offering something that someone cannot get on their own, because that's not reproducible. That's not empowering. To know that, that moment when you randomly get a bunch of money, but you don't know how to do that again, that's scary, right? Because that's when you get into imposter syndrome, like, this happened to me by accident, I don't know how I'll ever reproduce this again. But if you hustle and you earn something, you know you can do it again. They can take it all away from you, and you can do it again. So we'd rather be empower every person on the planet. So that means that if we go to Nigeria and we help with tech mentorship, and we take all of that content and we put it online and say, hey, Rio, Sao Paulo, Mumbai, Ho Chi Minh City, this is what we used in Nigeria. You guys may want to use it too. That's empowering, not giving. We never give, because why, right? The other thing is that when you think about enterprise, a lot of people think about huge ass companies, right? Millions of people, thousands. An enterprise is anything that provides a service or a product. It's a company. It can be 3 people. We have a secret mission of helping build tiny enterprises all over the world, 3 to 30. And we want to do that with the 2 things that we bring to the table: our knowledge and our networks. We're not coming at it saying, like, we know everything about enterprise in Nigeria. We know not a damn thing, right? But we know that we can make friends who can help us. And once we start building our network and tribe of people in Nigeria, they can help each other. So once we start befriending companies and incubators and such in Nigeria, they can start helping offer mentorship and advice to all of those young entrepreneurs there who need a safe place to innovate, to try to solve problems for their city. That's what we can do. We can help form relationships through things like this, through community building, and through offering like the knowledge that we happen to have just by the nature of what we do, right? People are like, oh, I want to store my data in a safe place. We're like, have you considered Azure? Like, it's a thing. You don't have to use it, but here's some people who have done it in the past.
So we're investing in the long term.
Yes.
We have the fortune to be in an amazing industry with many strong competitors and partners. We wish our competitors all the best. Mm-hmm. We think our solution also will work. It's a little bit different way of approaching it. It's more of a ground up. It's not saying, look, you need to have 5,000 devices before we'll talk to you. It's we're going to empower you with the technology you need, whether that's a device or whether that's the office productivity or whether that's the cloud or whether that's something that will help you and will help you get to that place where you can create your own solutions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We're not even saying we're teaching people to fish.
Show them that fishing is a thing.
We're showing them that fish, He's saying, this is a fishing pole if you want it.
Hey, this is me fishing.
This is me fishing. Fishing is a thing.
Yeah.
But it also comes down to drive. If I think something that your problem that you're passionate about, I think that saying, okay, are you passionate in helping me? You're passionate for it because you 10 times more way to do it.
Yeah.
You're saying, this is the way to do it.
That's right. Yeah.
That's right. Other questions? Comments? Flame mail? Angry tweets?
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much for your time.